World religions, right? So please have your notebooks out. We are going to create basically like a working vocabulary to talk about religions that we are going to use over the next several days, actually for the rest of the unit, when we look at specific world religions. So you can title this page World Religions 101 or something, Intro to World Religions. Remember too, that when you're taking notes, or when I have key point slides up here, if something is highlighted in yellow, it means it's a word that you're definitely going to need to know. So as we're working on summarizing your notes, hopefully you're starting to like find a system that works. Hopefully you're working on flashcards or color coding in your notes, or finding a way to make vocabulary really stand out. And hopefully that helps you like know where to focus. So first off, religion, what is it? Religions are sets of beliefs and practices. A practice is a thing that people do. So it's things that people believe and do that relate to the relationship between the physical world, Earth, where we are, and the supernatural, a higher power, a deity, a god, a gods, many gods. Those are all kind of synonyms. The supernatural means something beyond this world. Not natural, bigger than natural, supernatural. One way we can distinguish religions is just basically how many gods are worshipped, right? So like monotheism, one god, mono means one. Please write that down if you didn't know it. The roots of these words can be helpful too. Polytheism, poly means many, so that means many gods. And then not a religion, but using the same roots and suffixes, atheism means no god, but that's not a religion. So if you believe in one god, you are a monotheist. If you believe in many gods, you are a polytheist. If you believe that God does not exist, you are an atheist. At heart, religion's really about four things usually for society. It has to do with like believing in a god or a deity or a higher power or something supernatural. It has to do with a doctrine of salvation, so like a set of beliefs that have to do with like somehow being saved. The implication is that like people need saving. They involve a code of conduct, like a set of rules about behavior, and they often involve rituals, which are ceremonies where certain actions are always done in the same order. So often, the things religions believe are outlined in a holy book and reinforced by rituals and at places of worship. And like the names for these things vary between the religions, right? So like the holy book for Judaism is the Torah. For Christianity, it's the Bible. For Muslims, it is the Quran. Places of worship are different too, but they all have those, you know, general categories of things. So why are we even studying religion? Like you are in a school, you're not at church, right? We're studying religion as social scientists in this class. That means that we are interested in anything that shapes culture, where it comes from, why it spreads, and how it affects how people live, right? And religions definitely shape culture. They do this in a few ways. They unite believers in an organized community. They give people a sense of having something very significant to their identity in common with one another. And they shape how people live their lives by specifying norms, values, and rules. So like how people behave, what's right and what's wrong, and like what can and can you not do. And All of these things are fascinating for social scientists and historians and geographers because they really give us an insight about why people behave the way they do and like what matters to them. In addition, like religions give people a purpose. They can give people hope. And historically, that's been pretty important. And super importantly, they reinforce the power structures that exist in society often. So when we talked about government a couple days ago, remember we talked about how like often political power is like backed up by some sort of religious justification, right? That's a trend that's happened throughout all of human history. So like often religions reinforce the shape of society and who has power and who doesn't. So, as social scientists, we are interested in looking at religions in an academic way. And what that means is a neutral, secular perspective. Our purpose in covering world religions is not to get you to adopt any specific one or to question your own or anything like that. It is all about just understanding different people and cultures and like thinking about ideas that have shaped history that are interesting, that might be from cultures that are really far away, that maybe we've never thought about before. I used the word secular, and that's the word that I'd like for you to write down for sure, because it's like, it's not the opposite of religion in the it's against it, but it's like a lack of religion. Secular means taking no position whatsoever on religious belief. It's just not relevant. So when we study religions from a secular perspective, we're not looking about like which beliefs are true or false or which religion is right. We're looking at just neutrally, like how do these ideas shape the cultures around them? And how has that affected history and maps and stuff like that? If you guys have questions, please drop them into the chat as we go, and I promise we will cover them. All right, we have one more slide on religions because here we've got the basic vocabulary and like mindset we need in order to study religion. But there's like one thing in particular that geographers are fascinated by, and historians too, because these things change the world. And that is all about how religions diffuse or spread. Some of them do, some of them don't. As Caesar noted in the Do First, it's interesting that Hinduism is the oldest religion, and yet it didn't spread. Judaism, also super old religion, and yet it didn't spread, not like Islam, not like Christianity, not like Buddhism. So like, why is that, right? A great question that a geographer would ask. So geographers study why some religions diffuse and others cluster in specific places. And there are a lot of answers to that question, like so many. So many answers to that question have to do with the historical context, like why does a specific set of religious ideas speak to a specific society at a specific moment in time in such a way that that idea endures for hundreds and hundreds of years? Like, fascinating, right? But there's also like a more basic way of understanding why some religions spread and why some don't. And it relates to the kind of religion that they are. So religion spread through conversion of new believers, right? If I have a religion and I want it to take off, I need more people to believe what I'm believing. And different religions approach this question of getting more believers very differently. Specifically, there are like two categories that are useful to keep in mind for this sort of thing. I use the word convert. To convert means to adopt or get someone else to adopt a religious faith. So if that's not something you know, please add that to your glossary. Ethnic religions. I'm going to start with them because they are the oldest. Ethnic religions do not generally seek converts and are usually associated with a specific region or ethnic group, like Judaism, like Hinduism. That helps to start explaining why they haven't spread. Often, for Judaism and Hinduism, people are born into the culture, and they don't spend a whole lot of time trying to get other people who are not part of that culture or part of that ethnic group to accept their own beliefs. On the flip side, universalizing religions actively seek out converts. You'll notice on the map too, universalizing religions take up the most space on the map. It makes sense, right? Because if they're actively trying to get people to adopt their religion, more people throughout the globe will probably adopt that religion. A couple things about this term. So universalizing is a term that you'll probably see a lot in a lot of different contexts, and it means like basically for everybody. So when people talk about universal healthcare, they mean healthcare for everybody. Universal rights, everybody has rights. Universal basic income, like an amount of money for everybody. You get the idea. So a universalizing religion is a religion that is open to everybody. They actively seek new converts. So a religion that tries to spread. And then under that bullet point, I put like a general rule of thumb about how universalizing religion spread. You'll save yourself a ton of time and trouble if you write it down now, because this is a pattern that we see over and over and over again in history. And if you learn the pattern, then it's easier to understand the specific cases that we're going to talk about over the next year or two. So universalizing religions tend to spread in a few ways. Through missionaries. So those are people who like are part of that religion, and their primary activity is to go out and get other people to adopt that religion. Missionaries. Second, through trade. Trade networks, especially before modern technology, connected the world. And people who traded, merchants, were the people who moved around from region to region more than anything else. And with them, they carried ideas and a lot of time on their hands to discuss ideas. So often they became conduits for ideas like religions to spread. They spread through conquest, right? Like Christianity throughout the world. And there tends to be something about those religions that really speak to the needs of the outcasts, the lower classes of society, especially at the time that those religions arose. So this is kind of what we're going to be studying over the next couple days. We're going to start with ethnic religions tomorrow, the very oldest religions that are still being practiced, Hinduism and Judaism. And then the next day we are going to look at Christianity and Buddhism, because they came about in roughly the same time period in history and roughly in reaction to the same problem. And then we'll look at Islam and like philosophies of non-believers like atheists and agnostics next week. Caesar says he's terrified of Jehovah's Witnesses, which is a great example of a missionary coming to try to spread a universalizing religion. Right. For a challenge, because we have this kind of time today, if you want to see how much of world religions you know already, please open the page World Religions Review Template in your OneNote and see how much of this you can fill out just based on your own background knowledge. It'd be interesting for me actually also to see like how much you know starting off with. It'll help me kind of pitch my lessons to you down the line. So when I ask about a deity, a god, I'm asking, do they worship one god? Are they monotheistic or polytheistic? Many gods. Who founded that religion? What are like the main defining features of that religion? Do they seek converts? Are they ethnic religions or universalizing religions? If you have a fantastic memory, you can probably fill that whole row in right now. We're also, since we're in world geography class, going to be thinking about the region or anchor country that that religion began in and where and why it spread. You'll notice the last column is humanism, and it's in a different color. Humanism is a life philosophy for people who don't believe in God. So we're going to